Crime Cafe, your podcasting source of great crime, suspense, and thriller writing. I'm your host, Debbi Mack. Before I bring on my guest, I'll just remind you that the Crime Cafe has 2 ebooks for sale, the 9-book box set and the short story anthology. You can find the buy links for both on my website, debbimack.com, under the Crime Cafe link. You can also get a free copy of either book if you become a Patreon supporter. You'll get that and much more if you support the podcast on Patreon, along with our eternal gratitude for doing so. But first, let me put in a good word for Blueberry Podcasting. I'm a Blueberry affiliate, but that's not the only reason I'm telling you this. I've been using Blueberry Podcasting as my hosting service for my podcast for years, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made. They give great customer service. You're in complete control of your own podcast. You can run it from your own website, and it just takes a lot of the work out of podcasting for me. I find for that reason that it's a company that I can get behind 100% and say, you should try this. Try Blueberry. It doesn't require a long-term contract, and it's just a great company, period. And it also has free technical support by email, video, and phone. So you can get a human being there. Isn't that nice? Hi, everyone. My guest today has been a featured journalist, online forum contributor, and careers columnist. Her work has appeared in the Chicago Tribune, the Sun-Times, and other national publications. Her debut novel, The Plans They Made, won the 2022 Page Turner Award for Best Genre Writing. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to my guest, Graciela Kenig. Am I saying that correctly? Kenig?
Yes, you are. Yes, and thank you
Wow.
for having me. You guys, it's amazing. You're saying both things correctly, and that's cool.
Well, you see, I'm married to an Italiano man. His last name, if you pronounced it correctly, would sound very different from the way people actually pronounce it when they can pronounce it. It's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
I have
No,
no problem with vowels, folks. I did take Spanish, so that helped in
yes,
junior high and high school and all that stuff. Um, so how are you doing anyway?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. I'm just looking forward to spring in Chicago. We've had a rough
Fantastic.
one. Yeah.
All right. You've had a very interesting career from writing features to having your own column. How did you go about developing this particular career path?
Some of it was very organic. I wanted to be a writer from the get-go when I was little, and of course the language, because I was born in Argentina and I wrote in Spanish. And so I moved to the United States with my family, and I had studied English, but you don't use it every day until you have to. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, it kind of started like that I wanted to be a writer. And for the longest time, even though I had been encouraged about how I could write well, I kept thinking that Spanish was the language I should write in because that's what I was very comfortable with. So I entered the newspaper writing career because the Chicago Sun-Times had started a section in Spanish. So I started writing articles for them. No journalist training, just like, okay, let's see what happens here, right? And so I learned quickly, and soon enough they asked me if I would come in part-time to help the editor because he was not a native born Spanish speaker, if I could just do a final sweep of his columns. He'd already done his editing, so I had to go back and make sure that everything was okay. And so that column, I think it lasted for the sometimes a couple years, and then you're inside this newspaper, and so somebody says, "Do you write in English too?" I said, "Yes, I do." And I was always drawn to being, somebody who can give you advice. So some of the things that I liked, for a while it was, eventually I freelanced for the Chicago Tribune, and there I got in because I was writing for a know-how section, so I could write about how do you put together a ceiling fan. And so those kinds of things like that. And I wrote for a bunch of local papers. And eventually I kind of started doing other things, getting interested in helping people with their career. And then the Tribune started a Spanish language newspaper, and that one lasted 10 years. And I wrote the careers column. So it was this interesting thing that kind of opened doors for me as to how I can help people in a very more specific way. And I felt that I wanted to help the Latino community because oftentimes we tended to be railroaded into one kind of job or another kind of job. And at least I said, if you're bilingual, you can do
Yeah.
that and the other thing. And the more I did that, the more I realized it wasn't just being able to speak another language, it was also about the cultural issues. So it was very organic and, went like that. But I always, always wanted to write fiction. So
Oh, that is so cool. I
yeah.
love what you're saying. That is just fantastic. Uh, what what inspired you to write your novel? What inspired the idea for it?
I knew somebody who had put off reconnect them with her best friend, back in the time when you didn't have easily, you couldn't send faxes or, that kind of stuff. You just said snail mail was the only way to communicate or calling, and that was expensive. And so it was put off, and when they were about to get together, this other friend had died. And so that was the
Mm-hmm.
seed of this, but in big part, I used that for, I was taking a writing class, and that was a prompt. And
Uh-huh.
and it was something like I wrote one scene, and then the next assignment was write it from the other person's point of view. And which is so me because I think I like writing, and I think a lot of us in the arts tend to, you have an artist sensitivity when you can see things from different perspectives, when you can be an outsider. And if you're in within your thing, it's very hard to know your own culture, your own, everybody does the same thing in your little life, Well, I don't mean
Correct. Yeah.
trying to,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, in your circle of friends and acquaintances. And so I've always felt somehow, especially after we moved to the United States, as an outsider. So it's like, so you observe things in very different ways. You notice things other people don't. And that's really, and that's what I liked about the idea too, is I developed the protagonist, Kate, being a journalist, like, I had all that experience myself, but she was an outsider. She's visiting London, in a country she didn't
Yeah.
really know. And which also was helpful to me because, that way I could look at London not as the expert that I'm not. It was just like, okay, how did she see it as having been a journalist and a writer when she's there trying to find who killed their friend. I mean, the inspiration, the person that I knew it was not killed. She died in an accident. But,
Right.
you take your, what do they call your literary,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's interesting how things like a prompt and then, twisting it around, changing the perspective can really make you think about it
yeah,
and the
yeah,
possibilities.
yeah.
Good approach there. Great stuff. What was it that made you choose the thriller genre?
In a sense, that was organic as well. I was taking a few years ago during the pandemic. I became involved with this group, Story Grid, which is, most people think of Story Grid as an editing tool, but they did start something where we had these groups, and Sean Coyne, who's the founder of, who wrote the book, basically would have these workshops. And so I started to realize that what I was thinking about really was very much in line with a thriller. It wasn't what I intended to do. And although I had never been a real avid reader of thrillers, I had watched a lot of thrillers and movies and that kind of thing in both worlds, in Argentina and Spanish and here, because my dad loved that stuff. He loved detectives, he loved police procedurals and all those kinds of things. And I just watched them because he liked them, and I liked them too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we watched a lot of those in our house too.
yeah.
And I remember distinctly when I was growing up, there was a show called Honey West about a female private eye, and it lasted for like one season. And I was so angry when they took it off. I said, I don't believe they took that show off. The one show where I get to see a woman do something really cool.
It's pretty rare back, I mean, that
Back
is
in the
stuff. Yeah,
early 60s, that was almost like,
yeah,
like a bizarre event. But
yeah,
it was really just a great show. And then the Avengers came along and kind of filled that hole for me a little bit.
yeah.
Emma Peel was
Yeah.
my heroine, so
Yeah, I like the visual part about, the movies showing action. Is always a lot harder to describe action in words, but
it is, yeah.
punching and I'm not, I mean, I do thrillers, but I don't like horror. It can be part of a thriller thing. And I also, I guess because of my upbringing, thrillers usually have to be political in nature, have some political thing,
I
When
get it.
yeah.
I
When I was
totally get
growing
it.
up, there were like 15 political parties in Argentina, and even
Oh
little
my
kids knew
goodness.
about them. It's crazy. So yeah, yeah.
If we could only come up with a third one here.
Yes, it would be helpful, wouldn't it? Yes,
A
yes.
little balance somewhere along the line. Let's see. You described yourself in another interview as a slow writer, primarily, I think, due to a lot of research that you do. How much research do you do before you start writing, or while you start writing, or while you are writing?
I like doing research. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
it can be a rabbit hole if I
Yeah,
don't
it can.
kill, stop myself. But um, I tend to just with this one, I'm writing a second novel now. But the plans, because I was still working full time, it took me a long time to write it. And there I went to London to see that. And when I was in there,
Mm,
I came up with other ideas. I thought, what happened that year in London? And there's a chapter, when it all has to do with President George W. Bush, who was visiting there. So I thought he was here. So I like the idea of having, it's not a historical novel, but I like having historical places, placeholders, so to speak. And that kind of it is how it revolved, how the story devolved in a sense. And I like that a lot because I do research a little before, but I also do a lot when I discover that I'm missing something and I don't know, you know.
precisely. Yeah.
And nowadays with the advent of AI, I mean, you can ask, it would have taken you months to get some of the things it can get for you, and you're just needing something for one sentence and, ooh, okay.
As long as you double check and make sure it's not hallucinating.
No, I know,
As a journalist, you know that.
yeah. Well, if they usually give you sources,
Usually, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, I mean, but if they don't, I check them. But I mean, it's a good opportunity because I don't know everything that I'm inventing. Like, if
Absolutely.
if you're sending somebody to federal prison, for example, I learned no, there's no parole in federal prison since this act of 1984. And I didn't know that until I just saw it in this research I did. So I enjoy doing that. Even if a lot of it doesn't end up directly on the novel, at least it's something that informs it.
Hmm. Yes. And what are you working on now?
I am working on, I don't know what you call it, a second or third draft of this one because
Is it a sequel or a
yeah,
standalone?
no, it's not a sequel. Because I spent so much time with the plans, I just wanted a break from that story, and this was inspired by something that was going to be a short story, but it's not. It's a novel.
It's funny
But
how these things happen.
so the working title of this is called Stuck in Paradise, and this, my protagonist is also a woman who's out of her element, and Paradise is a Caribbean island. And she goes there to help someone that basically plucks her from, someone she knew in the past. So So right now I'm deep into this thing of finalizing, this draft, whatever number it is. I stopped counting.
After
But
a while, you lose count.
yes, yes. But when at this point, there are times when just you kind of go and you slog through it. Like, what am I doing here? I'm not sure. But at this point, I ended up really pinpointing what I needed to do. So I'm in this really exciting period of like, oh, okay, I keep going now. Yeah. So I
I love
hope
that
it's gonna,
feeling, you know.
yeah, yeah.
You got to keep that feeling going.
It's hard. It's really hard because it doesn't
It
always work
is.
out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what kind of writing schedule do you keep?
I'm sorry.
Do you keep a writing schedule? Do you have
Yes,
a
I do. I pretty much, and that's part that started with the story grid groups. And I am on Central Time, so we write online. It's kind of an accountability group. And so we
Mhm.
all write at the same time and only share resources and questions at the end of the session. So we definitely do 10 to 12 every morning for me, Central Time. And like I'm on a roll, like I've been writing a lot longer these days, but I need breaks too. So often if I am going to do a minimum is 10 to 12. I'm thinking about the story all the time, but
Mhm.
but uh,
Yes.
but that's my writing schedule. Yes.
I've noticed that you've traveled quite a bit.
Yeah.
In addition to coming to the United States, do you prefer to go to a place before you write about it? Or do you just take
Um,
it as it comes, kind of like if you have to write a place that you've never been to, you just kind of research it?
I prefer to be there somewhat, that's what I
Hmm.
had been to London before I actually went and they had really good memories of it, but it wasn't a research trip. So when I decided to set it there, I decided I had to go and so it wasn't a touristy thing. I just went there and which happened to be the first time ever I traveled by myself outside of the country. So it had
Ah,
and I stayed at an apartment hotel where I could cook my own meals, so and it was wintry, so I had to be back by 4:30 or 5, so I could write, flesh out my notes. So I do like to go to the places, but I also like to travel. I see, again, talking about gaining outside perspective. Oh, yeah, this is
yeah.
supposed to do things here, and this is what they consider when they do this and that. And so, yeah, um, right now I almost can't go anywhere without at least thinking about those potential angles. Just like,
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, I
mhm.
love travel. Um, I tend to think of thrillers as stories that test the limits of possibility because you're always putting these people in situations that could happen, that are unlikely, but could happen and have devastating potential results. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, clearly when you're writing a thriller, you have to make sure that you raise the antes to, there's got to be a value change even in a scene. Like,
Exactly.
start out feeling this and a thriller, it goes from safety to danger or the other way around. So, um, but I think that I see that as a very important thing to do because when we read about someone who's in danger or how they came up with something, we learn something as readers. And so sometimes you'll be like, in a movie, you'd be covering your eyes if you're scared, but in books, sometimes you have to take a moment and rest because who that was strong.
Yeah,
But I also think that the more extreme situation the character is in, the more you understand that character and what is she or he made of. And
exactly. The ability to relate with that character and to feel what they're feeling in that moment. Yeah, it's very important for screenwriting, I'll tell you that.
I know I'm
Um,
not a screenwriter, but I know that, their character arc is important. They wouldn't do certain things if they were someone different.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. What authors have most influenced you and inspired you to write?
My tastes in writing are very eclectic, in part because I also grew up in Argentina where I read, back in the time of magical realism. So,
Mhm.
I don't anymore because I got tired of it, but I loved it at the time. And I loved all those authors like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who, won the Peace Nobel, Borges, Cortázar, all of these people were really inspirational to me. But here in the United States, in my early years, I really loved Ann Tyler. And it was just, she's not a thriller writer, but she's so knowledgeable about people, the
Yes.
dynamic in families, which is always, was attracted to that for some reason. Her characters did quirky things.
Yes, they did. I know. I'm a big Ann Tyler fan, actually. Yeah.
Always loved her. And so, for the longest time, if you ask me what's my favorite book, it was Dinner at the Homesick Restaurant. I thought
Oh
it,
my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. Yeah, that
yes,
one really got me.
yeah.
Um,
But, I do
our,
read a lot of thrillers now, a lot of authors, like, was one of Dennis Lehane, Stacey Abrams.
uh-huh.
I became a real fan of her. Somebody pointed her out to me, and she writes a lot about political things, like I like to write. So, uh,
Cool.
Michael Connolly, oh my gosh, he's so good. Harlan
Yes.
Coben. I had to write them
Uh-huh.
down because I know I like a lot of them, but these are people who are very inspirational to me now. But foundationally, I think a lot of these people who wrote about their characters, Ann Tyler is certainly one of them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, me too. What advice would you give to anyone who's interested in a writing career?
I think that, and it took me a long time to figure this out because, people would always say in English and Spanish how I could string words together really well. So my, writing was poetic, blah, 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 whatever it was, but you still have to understand story structure. And until I started taking some serious courses, I really didn't. And I mean, there's a lot out there nowadays, a lot of different people who are fantastic at teaching, and you could be spending money every day on something like that. You can have coaches. I think, first of all, it's a very lonely profession, and you do need feedback. You don't understand. And I mean, and again, I mentioned AI, and AI will point out some very important things, but you still need humans to look at. It'll say one thing, and then I have an editing group besides my accountability group, and we meet every week and we share, a short part of what we're writing. And the good thing is that they get to know your characters too, and they would say, "She wouldn't do that," or you know.
Yeah.
So I think that you need to be working with somebody, preferably who understands story well, whether that's an editor or take my first real courses that I took. I mean, I had taken many, but the ones that were really helpful to me were UCLA has an extension writing program. So you can do that online. And I had really wonderful I took 3 or 4 classes with them. And when I was talking about a writing class prompt, it was from one of those classes that I got this past book started. Um, I really like how they do that. They teach you to give feedback, um, constructive feedback, and to be good at that
Yes.
and to take it. We all have to take, we all have to take feedback, and sometimes we don't like what we're hearing. So but you learn from your feedback. So if you're
That's
not
right.
listening, then, you know,
It's not going to work if you if you're not willing to listen to what other people have to say about it,
yeah,
especially people who know how to write, who've been there and done it.
I know,
You-
I
You're
know.
not doing yourself any favors by ignoring comments.
Oh, I know. Well, when I would teach things at the university, when I was running an internship program, which is really connected to careers, I designed courses, career management. And one of the projects was to come up with, you had to have a portfolio about what you did, an online portfolio about what you did in the internship. And then I would say, okay, you're going to be in a team of 3 people or 4 or whatever, depending on the number of students I had. And so you don't have to use their feedback, but if 2 or 3 of them said the same thing, it's pointing something out to you that
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's probably one of the best advice. advice pieces that I gave to them because they started to figure out, yeah, something's not working here. And it was a very visual thing because they had to do it online. But, you know, it's like a job that I had right before I retired from regular work was that I worked at DePaul University, and it was a place where everything I did, my writing, my creating courses, and advising people all came together there. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, is there anything you'd like to add before we finish up?
Wow, I'm so appreciative that you did this for me. Thank you so much. I really, really like that. I like the idea of also suggesting that people, because when I finished this last novel we've been talking about, I did have to get beta readers, and that's very different than, don't just give it to your cousin, your husband, your brother. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I think one of the things that I learned is that when beta readers that hopefully also read the kind of genre that you write, because they will pick out, they know what readers expect of, for example, a thriller or a crime novel, and they will, they should tell you. And when I did, besides getting those beta readers for the plans they made, I also consulted with somebody who lived in London because I thought, hey, I put a lot of stuff in there that I thought I heard correctly.
Good idea.
And she was wonderful. She was like, he says, well, I'm your person in London. And, through a good friend of mine who was from England, but now from London, I connected with her and she was wonderful in helping. So
That's awesome.
just look for help. I mean, I think sometimes people worry, oh, you're going to copy my story. No, only you
Nobody's gonna do.
have the
Don't
story.
worry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, someone else can be developing the same idea and do something totally different. So,
Different, yeah. The idea is out there for anyone to use. The prompt was out there for anyone to use. They could have done
well,
anything with it. Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah. So, I
we
mean,
all write individually and differently.
yes, yes. And even when somebody gives you an idea, you get to choose if that's something that's going to work for you. And if it does, it doesn't. If it doesn't, you don't have to do what people say, but at least listen and consider that. If more than one person says that again, there's a point.
Keeping an open mind. Good idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Graciela. I really appreciate your being here and spending time with us.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate the opportunity and hope to see you again in the future somewhere.
Yeah, me too. That would be nice. It would be very nice.
Yeah.
I would just like to also thank my listeners for listening. And while I'm at it, I will remind you to check out Graciela's giveaway. She's giving away a copy of The Plans They Made. I will include a link in the notes to this podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like on your podcast app of choice. I'm trying to speak the language here. I think I'm doing okay. Um, the right language, the language I normally speak in. Our next guest will be Liz Lazarus. I love that name. Until then, take care and happy reading. Be seeing you.